Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is going to be a fun episode. If you ever hear the saying, don't meet your heroes, well, that's bullshit because this guy is my hero. Without him, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. So without Erik Allen, I wouldn't be the man, husband, father, businessman that I am. And if you want a better life, make sure Erik Allen is in your life. So, brother, welcome to the show. Guys, if you don't know Erik Allen, one of the best podcast hosts ever, hands down, one of the nicest people with the biggest heart. And today we're going to be talking about getting physically healthy, but also getting fiscally healthy. Because without health, there is no wealth. And you don't want to spend half your life getting wealth and the other half spending your wealth trying to get health. So, Erik, my brother, welcome to the show.
Man, let's do this. I'm so honored to be on your show, dude. Thank you for the amazing introduction, man. And, man, I just want to put a smile on someone's face every single day, man. That's a goal of mine. And, well, that's virtual or in person, man. I just want to go out and make an impact, man. And so thank you so much for having me on the show, dude. It's an honor to be back.
Well, without you, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I wouldn't be having a brand new book, which you've helped me with. I wouldn't be having a brand new course, which you've helped me with. So I give you and John Lee Dumas all the credit in the world for doing what I'm doing. So I just want to say thank you for being a brother, but not only that, but being a brother in Christ. So I love you, brother.
Love you too, bro.
And Big Joe, just want to let you know, Joe Graham, I love you, brother. I love everything you're doing. So you get a big shout out. If you don't know Joe Graham, 150K podcast, you need to know Joe Graham.
Yeah, so, go follow him for sure.
Yeah. So, Erik, let me ask you a question before we even get started.
Yeah.
What is your definition of resiliency?
Oh, man. I think the definition of resiliency in my mind is having this no-quit mentality. That you know that not everything in life is going to go right. But if you can acknowledge that you can get through those things and you can break through those things mentally, then I think that's the resilient side of stuff, right? You know that things are going to go wrong, but you have the power and the mindset to get through them. And for me and you, like, we have a faith in Jesus that allows us to get through challenges that sometimes we're going to be in the valleys of life. And that could take days, it could take months, it could take years, but we have to have that faith that God's going to pull us out of that, man. And so having that faith and having that no-quit mentality, that's what resilience is for me, man.
I love it. So, but, you know, if somebody would see Erik now, he's got a beautiful bride, he's got a beautiful family, he's got a beautiful business. It hasn't been all sunshines, rainbows, and Skittles.
Yeah, so, true.
So give us a quick down and dirty about who Erik Allen actually is.
I mean, the quick background is, you know, I grew up in the broken home. I had to fight my mom's boyfriend when I was 13. I was in jail at 18 for having a bong, which is really funny because it's legal now to have a bong. But in 1998, when I was a senior in high school, I couldn't have a bong. And so, yeah, I mean, I moved 21 times between the age of 18 and 21. And by the time I was 21, I was $28,000 in debt and had to file bankruptcy, battled drug and alcohol addiction for a long time. And in 2004, I woke up after a night of party and felt Jesus say, man, you got to change your life. And so I did. I gave my life to Christ and I quit cold turkey, everything, and been sober since and been on fire to just make an impact since, man.
And you have been making impact with your podcast. I mean, you've had some of the biggest names on there, including one of my favorite people in the world, Ed Mylett, which, you know, and I was just talking about Ed yesterday on the show that's one book I'm listening to again, because if you want to be successful in whatever you do, just do one more.
Dude, I got it right here.
And yep, and, exactly. And, you know, and sometimes like today, my computer shit the bed and I'm like, do I really want to do this? Do I have to do this through a phone? And Ed came to my mind. He's like, you know what? Doesn't matter. Just do one more.
Yeah.
So, you know, talk to us about your podcast and how many, because you've had some amazing people on, and you've actually sent a lot of people to me to have them on my show. So talk about how you started out your podcast and why you started a podcast, first of all.
Yeah, I mean, I started in 2012. I started an apparel company called Top Rated MMA, and it was kind of the days of TapOut. And I was like, hey, I want to get into that market, and we did that for a few years. But I got bored with the apparel side. But I was really intrigued by the conversations that I was having with fighters, and so I decided to start a MMA podcast called the Top Rated MMA Podcast in 2017. I had no idea what I was doing. I was recording on Ecamm or on FaceTime, and I was uploading this video to YouTube and then sharing that link out to Facebook and calling that my podcast. And my one question that I asked all the fighters, like, tell me why you want to get in a cage, you get punched in the face. Like, that was my one question I wanted to ask them. But then in 2018, I came across Ed Mylett online, and I was like, holy crap, this guy's values are aligning with mine. I love the way he's asking questions. He's just real and raw at that time. He was like just kind of starting out himself, at least social media wise. And so it was cool to hear just the beginning of him not even knowing what a hard drive was and the cloud and all this stuff. And so I wanted to talk with entrepreneurs, world changers, and success-minded people like himself. And so I created the Erik Allen Show, or used to be called the Bearded Biz, but Bradley and my wife are the two people that kind of question that. And so I changed it to the Erik Allen Show. But yeah, man, I started in 2018 with the Erik Allen Show. I ran both shows until 2021, and now I just do the Erik Allen Show. But been blessed to speak with guys like Ed Mylett and Bradley and Tim Story and Heather Monahan, Martha Crudgy, Dan Caldwell, John Gordon. I mean, David Meltzer, you name it. I've been blessed to speak with some truly amazing people, and yourself and Joe Graham and Kelly Cardenas, man, or Greg Reed. Some of those guys have just been a part of my life since. But it's been fun, man. I truly enjoy the conversations that I get to have with people. And it's interesting is in the podcast world, if you're a listener, you're kind of like intimately, creepily like listening in on this one-on-one conversation, right? But as the host, you're asking questions that bring out, hopefully, just amazing stories that are impactful, that are tactful, right? That are purposeful. And hopefully that conversation can make an impact or maybe just give someone a little bit of nudge to maybe take a little bit of risk or step away from that toxic relationship or drop the drugs, right? Or get out of the negativity spot, right? And so I am super passionate about podcasting. Episode 251 drops on my show this Friday of the Erik Allen Show. And I finished my previous podcast with 256 episodes. So I've recorded just over 500 episodes now. It's been fun, man.
Okay, now let me ask you a question because, I believe God things happen.
Yeah.
The other day, I'm going through my closet, cleaning out stuff, and I find an old TapOut shirt that I've had when TapOut was huge.
Yeah.
And then I click onto social media, and guess who Erik Allen has on his show? And it was one of my favorite episodes because he was one of my favorite dudes.
Yeah.
That era. And
Yeah.
it was amazing that, the same day that I'm looking and I find a TapOut shirt from like the early 2000s. And now I have this gentleman that I looked up to on the show. So talk about that a little bit, because I think he's an amazing dude. And I love the way he's transformed his life from TapOut back in the day to now what he's doing in life. So what was that like? Because, a lot of people were like, oh man, I remember the TapOut guys. What happened? And I loved the conversation you guys had on your show.
Man, Dan Caldwell is one of those guys that just one of the like realest, coolest, down to earth dudes that I've ever had the opportunity to talk with. And I spoke to him on the show about 2 years ago under the Top Rated MMA banner. And I wanted to have another conversation with him because he's got an amazing podcast called Pretty and Punk, it's like success, love, and kids, right? And so it's this podcast about involving kids into the entrepreneurship life. And so I was like, dude, I want to talk about this. And he's got a great marriage and beautiful wife, right? And like they're raising their kids good. His son Daniel does these amazing motivational quote videos every day. I definitely recommend checking him out on Instagram. But man, Dan is just one of those dudes that, in the two conversations that I've had with him on my podcast, and it's been really cool to kind of text him a couple times throughout, the years, and just what he's got going on and the impact his mindset of like business entrepreneurial, but family first always. That's inspiring to me because I like to operate the same way. My faith, my family, and then business, right? And that's the way that he does that. And just the way that he's raising his kids, it's very inspirational. My kids are a little bit older, but the way that he does that, man, he's just a great dad and a great husband. And I just was like, dude, I want to talk with this guy and hear what he's got going on now. And he's just doing some awesome stuff, man. It was cool to talk with him again.
I love it. Now, something that I admire about you, I admire about Joe, I admire about Kelly, is that, at least for me, it's God, family and friends, and business.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, that's in the order that my life needs to be. And, you and Joe and Kelly have kind of kept me on track and mentored me to live that way, because a lot of times we get things out of whack. And I find that the most successful people, even like Ed talks about it all the time, is, his father, God in heaven, and then business. Because without the faith, then you really don't have anything. So talk about, God, family, business.
Man, I gave my life to Christ in 2004, and there's been years where I've just felt so close and extremely blessed and felt so close to God. And then there's been years where I have felt off because I wasn't fully in. And I think as Christians, we don't always feel close to God. And it's not his choice, it's our choice, because we made some mistakes or we made some choices that drew us away. And I definitely have lived in that area, and I've had to get up out of these valleys sometimes when they come to us. But I always have had this faith in knowing that God was there to protect me. And I believe throughout my life, there's many times where I should have been dead. So I believe that there's a purpose and a plan for my life more than what I've got or even see or even think of right now, because Jesus is doing that for me. Right. And so, man, for me, it's everything. I'm 44 years old. So as soon as I open my eyes in the morning, I immediately, first thing, ninja voice out loud, thank you, Jesus, for another day to see and hold and hug my family. Right. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And then for me, I make my bed. And so there's 2 wins in 15 seconds in my mind. So I'm already starting to stack the wins. And that's what helps me really start the day off. But for me, the non-negotiable is once I wake up, I hit the gym downstairs, but I'm up here and I'm spending time in prayer and worship. And my prayers are very much gratitude driven, man. I'm just so thankful for what I've been blessed with and who I get to live life with. And so, man, yeah, I think if you don't have a faith, and Dan talked about this in the show, right? If you don't have faith, then it's hard to have a strong family unit, I think.
Okay. So, I've tried to become very, listening to the Spirit, and if something comes on me, I'm just going to blurt it out, because there must be a reason to put it on me. But some people, and I'm going to say it, but I'm not going to mention any names. Some people were part of our nuclear family for a while, and then it seemed like we just got kicked to the curb by these people, and we kind of got ghosted by them. And I haven't seen them except for on social media. And a lot of people get aggravated if somebody in their circle leaves. But I believe that people come into your life for a season, and sometimes there's a reason that they're not there for this season. Yep. So talk about that, about how sometimes, God will put people in your life, but he also might subtract them. And that's called addition by subtraction.
Yeah, man, I think that there is always going to be people that they're either in your life for a season, or they're in your life for a lifetime, or maybe they're in your life for a couple seasons, right? But here's the thing, in God's hands in everything. And so I truly believe that sometimes those people that come in your life for a season, they make an impact on you in that moment, but then they need to move on and go make a different impact somewhere else. But maybe they've given you some knowledge or wisdom, or you learned something from them that you can then use and impact somebody else, right? And, I've gone to a lot of churches throughout my years, and at each of those churches, I'll connect with certain dudes and it'll be like, great, right? But then something like I'll feel like the urge, or my wife and I will have to, we want to go check out a different church because we're not connected with the pastor's message or something like that, right? And so those guys that were at that church, I had them in my life for a season, and they make it a good impact. But then now I'm able to go and connect with other people. I love to connect with as many people as I can, but it's those deep relationships. Like my buddy Dave, I met him in first grade. He's still my best friend today. You know, we've known each other for 36 years, and that dude and I have been through some stuff, man. And so there's a few people that'll be lifetime, but then a lot of people that might come in just for a season, and that's okay. And I just look at it as, you know what? God's got them in my life right now for a reason, but it's okay if they leave because I learned something and I can take that on to the next one.
And I love that theory, but I also realize that not everybody in your immediate circle is clapping for you.
Totally.
And you can't expect the people in your immediate circle to clap for you.
Yes.
I know that if I call Eric, if I call Joe, if I call Kelly, and I need help, and I say, bro, come to get me, or please buy me a plane ticket, I need help, I know that you got my back.
Yeah.
I know that, you know, Joe, I know that Kelly's, Greg, Mr. Reed, I know they got my back. And I know there's certain people in my own family that don't even have my back. So,
Yeah.
you know, talk about that a little bit, is that because I come from a big Italian family where, you know, family is everything, where loyalty is everything. But, you know, loyalty isn't always blood. It's the people that choose to be in your ecosystem. So talk about that.
I like to use this story of Noah, right? So Noah's in this desert and he starts to hear from God to build this boat. People around him, neighbors, friends, family, they're like, dude, you're crazy. There's not going to be a flood. Why are you spending resources and money to build this boat in the middle of the desert? See, it's because they lack his vision. They didn't see his purpose. They were the naysayers, the haters. But he kept building this boat, They were trying to talk him out of his purpose. But here's the thing. God didn't say, bring your coworkers, bring your friends, bring your neighbors, and especially bring your in-laws on that boat. He said, bring your wife, their sons, and their wives. And that's it. And so there's going to be people that are going to be part of your life, and they're going to be naysayers, they're going to be haters, or they might be your friends and family, like closest people, but they don't have the same vision as you. They don't have the same purpose as you. And so when you start to do something that you're feeling called to do, they're going to back up and go, whoa, wait a minute. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. Or they'll make fun of you, right? But it's they lack your vision. They lack your purpose, man. And you have to listen to that Holy Spirit, listen to that voice in your heart, man, and keep going through that no matter who it is, right? There's toxic people in your own family, as you know, and I know, and you just have to block them out. And sometimes you have to cut them off immediately and permanently. And sometimes you just have to kind of back up and go, all right, I'm going to do my thing. You do yours. I love you from a distance. But then there's those people that you definitely do have to cut off, right? But man, it's tough to do that sometimes because they're your quote unquote family. But once you make that decision, it's a big weight off your shoulders to do that, man.
I love it. But so I want to dig a little bit deeper, but I want to thank our sponsors. If you check it out up above, because if it wasn't for Eric, I wouldn't be doing this horizontal thing, because I was doing everything. I mean, I was doing everything totally different, but without you, I'm doing what I'm doing now. So thank you so much. So if you look up top now, if you love military science fiction, if you love like games like Halo and stuff like that, my friend JF actually writes books with military and science fiction. So guys, if you love books like Halo, checking him out up above. He's got some awesome books, and he also gives back to veterans and first responders. So if you're a big military or sci-fi reader, definitely check out JF Holmes. So now, Eric, let's talk about you, because you have pivoted many times in your life. And I think, so many people, if something, because now, especially after COVID, a lot of people fail to pivot, and they're no longer in business, or they're no longer living in the house that they were living in, or living with the wife that they used to have, because they didn't pivot and try to change for the better. So talk about, how you've pivoted over the years, especially even just since we've known each other. We've both pivoted a few times. So talk about having to pivot in today's world, and especially today's business world that's changing on a daily basis, especially with AI.
Man, I think there's a lot there, but if we go back to our good friend Kelly Cardenas, so something that he told me a few years back made such an impact on my life. So I didn't know Kelly before I went to Greg Reed's Prosperity Camp. I think it was in 2020 when I went the first time. Go down there and I meet Kelly, and Prosperity Camp at that time, 50 people at Greg Reed's house. 49 of them are millionaires. I'm the one that's not, right? But like I walked in and loved meeting so many people. And Greg does such a great job at doing Prosperity Camp. But the next year I went back to Prosperity Camp and got to see Kelly again. And Kelly said, "Hey, I live down by the beach. Do you want to come watch the sunrise with me? And we'll go read the word." And I was like, "Yeah, man, let's do it." So, I've stayed at a Hotel 6, like the cheapest I can be. And I walk over to his, neighborhood, and we go down to the beach. And at this time in my mindset, all I wanted to do was be a full-time entrepreneur. I've always been a W-2 employee. And in my mindset, I was like, dude, I just want to be a full-time employee. I'm telling him this on the beach. And he goes, "Erik, you're at Prosperity Camp and there's all these successful people and they have great businesses and they're making a lot of money. But how many of them have great marriages?" And it just hit me in the heart so like deep in that moment that I had my priorities wrong. And it was in that moment that I really started to change things and go, man, I've got it all backwards. And so I came home and I really started to deep dive into being intentional about loving my wife more, about showing her more respect, right? And I've always battled with that. Like I've always been a W-2 employee, but I've always battled with like wanting to be that full-time entrepreneur. And there was a moment in December of last year where I got laid off along with 500 other people from a company that I'd been with for 4 years. And it was a great company to work for. But I believe that God does everything for a reason. He got me out of there, right? It was a season that I was there. And so got into a new thing and been doing that for a while, but it's tough. It's tough to get go, but you have to keep battling through those changes. You have to be able to pivot. If you're staying constant, you're never going to grow. And sometimes, like we said, like God puts us in these valleys so that we can grow. And I believe that, sometimes I am in this valley, even right now, like trying to get up and get back into a position where I was before. Right. But I think if we just have faith and we step into that, man, that's where God can come up and show and, it all the glory to him, because then we can give it to him as where we grew, where we came from. Right. And so, man, staying strong in that and continuing to go, that's the way to go, dude.
But don't you think that, for me, my mentors are you, John Lee Dumas, Travis Johnson, Ed Mylett, Gary Vaynerchuk. But don't you think that, because I've bothered you many times, I'll be like, "Erik, you got a minute? I'm struggling with something."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Yeah, bro, what do you need?" And I think that men need other men just to say, "You know what, Rich? It's okay. I got
totally.
you. Whatever you need." And I think the quality of your life depends on the quality of men. If you're a man or a woman, the quality of the men or women in your life. Because if you have, and I was talking about this on the show yesterday, if you're hanging out with 5 people that are cheating on their wives, guess who's going to be the 6th one going to go through divorce?
Yeah.
But if you're around 5 men that are in the word, that are living their best life for Christ, trying to be their best, then you're going to be the 6th. So talk about having those men in your life to reach out to and talk to when you're hurting. Just saying, I just need your help. Sometimes I just need you to listen. I don't even need your advice. I just want you to say, "Hey, can I bend your ear a little bit?"
Yeah.
So talk about that.
So that's such a deep, a good conversation to have, because men do need other men. And sometimes it's in a physical presence, meaning like they're local to you. You can go grab coffee with them. You can go grab dinner, grab breakfast, whatever it is, right? You can go and have that conversation with you or a group of men, right? And then there's dudes like you and Joe and Kelly, right? And Brian Ward that I feel like are like super close for me, right? That I can connect with at any point. And I've always said, like, find people that are living the life that you want to live and go surround yourself with them. Like, and Ed talks about that too. But there's a but to that. You have to find people that are living life that you want to live, how you want to live your life. Because morally, they might have gotten there not on your same way that you believe in, right? They might have done some shady crap to get to where you want to be, right? Financially, whatever that is, right? So if that's the way that you found these people in your life, they're not your people. You got to find people that are living the life that you want to live, but how you want to live your life as well. If you have to be aligning with you on your values, on your faith, your perspective on life, right? Those are your people. But find people that are doing that. Don't find the people that are living the life that you want to live, but not morally living it that way.
And, you know, and I also want to give a big shout out to my brother, Todd Saylor, another amazing dude, Christ-centered. He's mentored me. And he also, you know, you guys will also was like, hey, you know, like when I sent you a copy of, you know, of my book, and you're like, yeah, something just doesn't look right. So I can either say, okay, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I could have got my ass up in the air, and my ego could have got inflated instead of me saying, Eric, you're right. I need to change this. And I think we need to be accountable. And I think that's how you become successful, is when you become more accountable and being humble and being teachable. And I think the members that we just talked about, you know, all 5 of us, I think we're all that way. We're all humble. We're all teachable, but we'll also call each other out on our BS too.
Totally. Yeah. And I want that. Like, and I think that's important, to have a close group of men that aren't just yes men, right? Yeah. It's good to have dudes in your life that just are not just the yes men, right? You need guys that will hold you accountable, that will kind of light your fire, light that fire underneath your butt when you're slacking off, or you're not being a good husband, or you're walking away from faith, or doing stuff like that. Like, you need people in your life that will kind of slap you upside the head spiritually.
And you guys do that all the time for me. So I love you guys. So let's talk about getting healthy physically and fiscally. What have you got going on? Because I know you have a brand new endeavor and I'm really excited about. But you're also getting in shape physically. So talk about the both of them.
Well, you know, I started really last year in May of wanting to get better healthy wise. I wanted to lose weight. I wanted to get, you know, I would say shredded as much as I could, right? Like, lose some of the dad bod and really get more into better shape, where I'd feel more comfortable with my shirt off during the, you know, the lake season and the hot season out here. So I started working out, watching what I was doing, and then been doing that about 5 days a week. It's been fun. And it's, you know, some days are rougher than others, but you just got to keep pushing through it. And then in 2024, I said, I'm going to do 101 push-ups every day. And, you know, and I do the one because Ed says power of one more. So I just do 101 extra push-up every day. So 101 push-ups. We're on day 38 today, and haven't stopped. There's days where the last few days, my wrists were kind of a little bit sore, but I was like, hey, you know what? We're going to keep pushing this thing a little bit and see what happens. And, you know, I'll watch it. But man, I think it's so important to be physically fit, and not saying that you got to go out and be bodybuilder shape, right? But I'm 44. I want to live at least till I'm 84. And so I want to be healthy. I want to put healthy stuff in my body. I want to start, you know, working out. I'm working out 5 days a week right now, and I'm feeling great. Definitely feeling the best shape that I've ever been in my entire life. And so that's super important to me. And then the other side of it, the financial side, right? So like I said, I've been a W-2 employee my entire life, and was planning to just do insurance part-time while I was still working a W-2 job. The layoff kind of caused me to jump into that full-time. And it's not like where I'm making tens of thousands of dollars yet, but it's given me an opportunity to connect with people and help people out. And I'm specifically tailored to life insurance. And so people that have life insurance, I think you should. You know, there's a huge risk. 90% of houses, 90% of people sorry, I'm getting that stat wrong. 90% of people have the opportunity to lose their home should their breadwinner die, because people aren't prepared for death. And so I've seen both ends of the spectrum on life insurance, where a family member passed away, didn't believe in insurance, left the other person in a pretty bad spot, and had to move out of a house. I've seen people in my own family be blessed because of life insurance, where they were able to cover the cost of funeral and burial and all of that stuff, and then get that person out of debt. I've seen both ends of the spectrum, and some people believe in insurance, some people don't. But I am a big believer in it, and I believe in helping people out. If I was to die today, my wife's taken care of. She doesn't have to worry about the bills. She doesn't have to worry about the mortgage, right? I think people don't think about that too often in their early ages, and I wish that I would have. I wish I would have had that set up. So my goal is to help people with life insurance, mortgage protection, right? If you pass away, are we going to take care of your mortgage fully? Or are we going to take care of it for a year, for 8 months, for 10 months, whatever you want, right? And then it's even more than that, but that's really the bread and butter, I would say, that is part of the business that I'm in. Is we want to make sure that people who are going to pass away, or, that they're just prepared, right? They are not leaving their family in a world of crap and having to, dig out of savings to go pay for a funeral cost or be left with a bunch of debt, right? Take care of your family. And so that's what we do, man. We help people out.
All right. Because, I'm going through this right now, a matter of fact. And I talk about it a lot. Is I grew up literally living in a rich dad, poor dad kind of life, because my mother never took care of herself, or my mom and dad never took care of themselves financially. And then I had my aunt and uncle. They were insured up to the gill, but they would take courses on finances. They would go read books and do all kinds of stuff. And my mother and my aunt, my aunt just passed away 2 weeks ago.
Oh man, so sorry.
My aunt, because she took care of herself financially, she was able to get the best help. She was able to be in assisted living that was like 10 or 15,000 a month. Yeah. And she was able to do it for like 10 years because she was, had long-term care insurance. She had life insurance. She was all about the insurance. Yeah. But then my dad passed on Valentine's Day 2 years ago. He came from off the boat from Italy, didn't believe in insurance. And we had to bury him. Obviously, we had to sell the house. And now mom is in a nursing home that's being Medicaid. Mm. And it's all because she says, well, God's going to take care of me.
Sure.
Instead of saying, okay, instead of, when you're 40 or when you're 50, saying, okay, like the great poet and musician Jim Morrison said, nobody gets out of here alive.
Yeah.
So, but because my mother did not plan, her father didn't plan, now there's two different ends of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. So what do you do? Because a lot of us, when we get out of the military, we lose our servicemen's group life insurance. Mm. Or you get to a point where you're 40 or 50, you're diabetic, high cholesterol, and it's so expensive to get insurance. Yeah. So talk to us, break it down Barney style about, for the average American, because the average American's overweight, like 20 or 30 pounds, pre-diabetic. Some of them can't even get insurances. So talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm a broker, so I work with probably 35 different carriers. And so there is usually a very, very slim chance that I won't be able to get you covered. But for the most part, I'm going to get you some sort of coverage. Overweight, diabetic, cancer, I've seen it all go through. So I think what people have the wrong idea about insurance is I want to, sometimes they think of insurance like, oh, I'm going to leave my family millions and millions of dollars. You can do that, yeah. But what about the small things? What about paying the $10 or $15 or $20,000 it'll cost to bury you, to buy the casket, to go through that stuff, right? What about the small amount of money that it would cost to get your family out of debt, right? So I think not enough people think about it that way. And the average life insurance premium, so how much people are paying per year, is like $1,200 per year, right? That's really nothing to make sure that you've got a little bit of money saved up for your family at the end when you pass away, right? To take care of some sort of debt. So I think it's worth it to invest $12 or $15 or $2,000 or $2,500 a year into making sure that your family is taken care of when you pass away. And man, it's something that not enough people look at, and I certainly didn't. And I wasn't strong financially. I mean, I filed bankruptcy when I was 21. I was $28,000 in debt. I was not financially smart. But it was after that I learned my lesson. I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that again. And so I started to kind of figure out like what things do I need to do and put into place so that I am successful financially. And that's a different like opinion of people, right? So successful financially isn't for me. It's not tens of millions of dollars. It's being able to provide for my family and being out of debt, right? And so I think that not enough people think about that. I wish that I would have implemented life insurance at an earlier age, so I would have had a different sort of plan in place right now. But I have life insurance. My family was prepared. And I think people need to think about that. Like, you're going to leave this earth someday. Make sure that you take care of your family, at least cover your funeral costs. It doesn't cost that much, $1,300 a year to make sure that your funeral is covered. And so I think not enough people think about that, and they just, oh, we got it in the savings. Well, why not? Why take it out of savings? Why not leave that savings for your family?
So now I'm an old dude. We know I just turned 55. So I was around back in the day when there was something called Mr. A.L. Williams.
Okay.
Yep. And Primerica.
Yeah.
And I worked with Primerica for a few years, and the greatest thing I've ever done is to deliver a check to a family.
Yeah.
When their loved one passed away.
Sure.
And you could just see, there's something about when they know, okay, I'm going to be okay. They're not there with me, but they took care of me. Mm-hmm. So something about delivering that check that just changes a whole person's life and a philosophy. So talk about that, because, like you said, it's a hard subject to talk about. Like, I sold life insurance. I mean, I actually worked in a funeral home. I actually sold plots and sold headstones. It's a hard sell. Yeah. But we all need to have the conversation.
Totally.
And so talk to us about, because sometimes you go like, oh, you're selling insurance now. And then, yeah. But sure. Then you might see them a year down the road and their loved one passed away, and they're like, I wish I would have talked to you a year ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because a lot of times in talk with coworkers, there's been situations where, a husband pulled out a policy on himself, didn't tell his wife. He passed away 2 weeks later in a car accident. And she thought that everything was going to be, she'd have to lose the house, all of that stuff. And my teammate was able to go and deliver a check to her that paid for the mortgage and was able to keep her in that house and pay for all of this stuff. And she had no idea that this, her husband had put in this policy. So I think it's so important to think beyond when we pass, right? Like, if you love your family, love your wife, love your kids, like, make sure that they are taken care of. And I'm not saying giving them millions of dollars, but it can change generations deep. What if you did pass away and you were able to get out of massive debt, get your family out of massive debt, and that continued for generations, or they saw money differently, or like, man, I don't want to be in debt anymore, right? That one thing that you did could change generations down your line. And so it's so important to look at it that way. And I don't want to, I'm not here to sell on life insurance. I'm just saying, hey, if you are thinking about it and you want to take care of your family, it's something to at least look into, because a lot of people, I think, have the wrong idea. Like, oh, it's going to cost me thousands of dollars a year. $1,200 is the average premium for life insurance. Right. And so I've seen people with diabetic, I've seen people with cancer, I've seen people with, heart attacks, all get taken care of. I was speaking with a guy last week who's 77 years old that I was able to get him coverage on his mortgage protection plan. That basically take care of his mortgage for 10 months after, if he was to pass away. Right. So his family would have 10 months to kind of figure out what they want to do. Now, obviously it's tougher to and more expensive if you try to get insurance in your older age, but we were still able to help him out. And so, think about it. That's all I'm saying is if you don't have life insurance, if you have it through your work, I would not even count that as, because your job is not loyal to you. That could go away at any moment. So find a life insurance that's not through your employer.
All right. So as we knew we were going to talk, we scheduled this about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
I started doing my research on 100 of the wealthiest people in the United States today. And something that they're heavily invested in is insurance.
Yeah.
Not just as a for death, but also for life. Yes. And a lot of them are using it as an investment vehicle.
Right.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because it's not just about death. but it's about life too. Because sometimes there's certain policies that you can actually, start building wealth, and not only wealth, but generational wealth by using these certain products.
Yeah, and I'm not too familiar with the kind of the be your own bank sort of system. I had a good buddy of mine, Chris Noggle, amazing guy, knows his stuff about that, and could definitely help you with that. But there's annuities and things like that that I'm able to work with on my team, and I'm even looking at like the 401k that I've built up for my employers to moving stuff around, because now I'm seeing it from a different perspective. Like, oh man, if I just had it here, I could change things around. There's a lot of money that can be made in insurance. I think that people don't get into it specifically for the money. They get into it for the freedom, right? So they don't want to have to ask the boss man, like, hey, can I go to my kid's baseball game today? Or can I go to my kid's play today? Right. They want the freedom, and the money is good too. And if you look at it, like you said, top 100 wealthiest people in the world, probably a lot of them have been involved in insurance in some way, shape, or form, or real estate. And those two industries are probably the biggest money makers for most of the millionaires, right? They have some sort of ties to those two industries. And so I think, outside of thinking about you passing away, think about your own personal income. I know for me, the team that I work with, when I pass away, my agency actually goes to my kids and my wife, and they'll continue to get money. They'll continue to be paid for my agency that I built up. And so I'm looking for rock stars who want to join my team and be part of that team. And I'm not going to say it's easy. It's a tough go, but if we can find rock stars and we can build this thing together, it doesn't matter what state you're in, but like, let's do this. Let's build this thing up, and let's make some impact on not only our own family, but other families as well.
Yeah. Cause even like somebody, like, since I knew we were going to be talking, I reached out to Patrick Bet David.
Nice.
And Ed Mylett, because they're both involved in the health industry, whether it's, before death, after death, during life. And they're very, very successful people.
Yeah.
But they made a lot of their wealth owning a business, but also building a business. Because as we know, that I can't be successful with my podcast if I don't have a team around me.
Right.
If I don't have people promoting me, if I don't have employees, I can't do it on my own. And that's why, by the way, I want to say thank you. I reached out to the young lady that you told me to reach out to. She's going to be editing the book. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. But again, it's all about having a team.
Yeah.
So talk about building a team in not only in the insurance business, but in life and also in business, to build a strong team, because you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Man, I tried to take life on alone for a lot of years, and I wasn't getting anywhere. In fact, I was probably, at the bottom of the bottom when I was feeling most alone. And I think if you can find a team, whether that's your wife or your husband or someone to do life with, like, that's your team. And even John Maxwell, who talks about, one of the greatest leaders in the world, talks about, like, in leadership and in business, it can't just be you. You have to have a team together to build that up. And it's so important to find those guys, again, living life that you want to live, but how you want to live your life, and do life with those guys, and find people that you can be part of your team, whether that's in a job or in life, and start to intentionally build those relationships. When it comes to the insurance side, there's really two goals. One, help people out with insurance, and two, recruit people. And recruit people that are going to align with your values, that also want to make an impact. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to find people that are wanting to make an impact on not only themselves, but other people's lives, man, and build that team up, and are going to continue to do that, man.
All right. So let me ask you a question, because I wrote down, as you see, I'm always writing stuff down that I want to talk about. You talk about wife, you talk about spouses. And I found that a lot of people, when they become entrepreneurs, they don't sit down at the kitchen table and have that hard conversation with their significant other until shit hits the fan. and then they're $10,000, $100,000 in debt, and then they got to have an even harder conversation. Like my wife, she's my CEO, she's my CFO, she's everything. She's
Yep.
great with the money, and she knows that everything that goes on with the business. So talk about that is, making sure that you and your spouse or your significant other are on the same mindset, same playing field. Because if you're not, you might lose half of your stuff you just built.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's super important to it's super important to have that conversation with your spouse. Like you, my wife is the brains behind everything that I do.
yep.
I'm the face of Erik Allen Media. I'm the face of our LLC. Everything is run by her. And through my history financially of not being smart and filing bankruptcy when I was 21, we've decided that we're never going to be in debt. And we just aren't. So anything that we do or add to the business or anything, we pay cash for. We don't do that. If there's a coaching program I want to get into or a training program I want to get into or paying for my insurance licenses, it's got to be paid for up front. We're not going into debt to do that. And some people are like, well, use your credit card and then you can build the wealth. Yeah, you can, but that's just something that we chose not to do. So it might be slower for somebody that needs to pay $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 for a license or for a training program or a mentor or a coach, right? We'll get to there at some point, but we just don't believe in going to debt. And so that's a conversation that we had to have. Now she's really good with the books, the receipts and all of that stuff. I pay the bills. She does the receipts. We know our strengths. I'm also the nerdy techie guy. She is the biggest tool person in the world. Everything that we have is hers. She knows how to build things. She knows how to put stuff together. She grew up in a shop with her grandfather, who was a shop teacher for 35 years. She knows how to use every tool out in there. I grew up where my dad said, hey, just pay people to do things. I learned how to change a tire and spark plug and brakes when I was 30 years old after being married to my wife by her grandfather, right? Like I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. And so we know our strengths. And so I think it is so important to have that conversation and figure out like, hey, what's your strength? What's my strength? Let's come together and do this. And especially when it comes to business though. Finances, I think is one of the biggest motivators or reasons for divorce, right? Because people aren't aligning financially, right? So if you're having that conversation with your spouse, like, hey, I do need to do this or I need to do that, or financially where we're at, like have that conversation with them. If you're in debt, then talk about how you get out of that. If you've got something coming up where you really want to put something together and kind of step up, take a step forward, maybe you do put something on your credit card, right? To get into that. It's not something that we do, but I know that people actually do that.
All right. So in a couple minutes, we're going to be doing some riffings, but what is Erik got going on in the next 90 days that we can help support your mission, whether it's your podcast, whether it's your brand new business? How can we support Erik Allen? Because I know I'm all in. Whatever Erik needs, I'm in. I'm actually want to get on a phone call with you. Probably going to be talking in the next couple of months about my financial situation to be able to get insurances. So I'm going to be reaching out to you. So talk to us about what you got going on and how we can support Erik Allen.
Man, if I can help you out and even look at your current life insurance, or if it's something you haven't thought about yet, then reach out. Let's set up a call, man. There's no pressure. I am definitely not one of the sales guys who are going to be like twisting your arm to try to do this or that, man. I'm going to put it out there, and if you like it, cool. If you don't, you get to make the choice, right? I'm building a team, so if people are interested in getting into the insurance or looking at that, reach out. I'll set you up and we can chat. I think for me, a big thing that I have coming up is I've been working on public speaking. For the last 6 months, I've been in Toastmasters and going to my meeting every single week and learning a ton. And through podcasting, I landed my first speaking gig out here in Coeur d'Alene, March 7th to the 10th. I'm going to be at an event called Conscious Investors Growth Summit.
Yes.
Super excited.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be speaking for 25 minutes on mindset, along with 20 plus amazing other speakers. I'm so honored to be part of this thing and really excited to get out there and make an impact. It's going to be in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Amazing area. It's at the resort, and I'm going to be there all 4 days, chatting and listening and connecting with people. And so that's what I have coming up. My book that I wrote, it's actually done. The first draft is done. My wife is editing it right now. So hopefully that'll be out by the summer. And then I'm just going to continue to work with brands. I've got some really cool brands coming up that I'm going to be working with. So I do a lot of user-generated content where they'll send me their product. They might want a 30-second or a 1-minute video or a 2-minute video. And one of the brands that I'm working with that I just like, I'm going to be putting on the website here in the next week or so is Blackout Coffee. And I'm super stoked to be working with these guys, man. I did some videos for them and now they want to work long-term. And that's really exciting for me to be able to do that and work with those guys. And obviously if you look them up, blackoutcoffee.com, they work with amazing podcasters, some of the biggest names in podcasting world on the conservative and patriot side. So such an honor to be in that group there. And so, man, really excited about what's coming up.
All right. So talk about, what is the new book? What is it going to be about? You don't got to give out all the details.
Sure.
But I'll give us a little sizzle about the steak.
It's going to be a memoir of my story, but then we're also going to tie in mindset to it and finding your purpose, right? Right now the title is going to be, we all get one choice, or we all get a choice. And what that is really like, we all get to choose how we want to live life. And sometimes we make choices in early age that cause us to make other choices later, but we all get to choose. You can walk away from the toxic relationship. You can walk away from the abusive relationship. You can walk away from the toxic work environment. We all get to choose how we want. And so my book is really going to go into the memoir of my story and more detail. And then we're going to get into some mindset and some tactical tips. And how can you implement things in your day that can help you with mindset and finding your purpose and finding your people. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in that book. I'm really super excited about that. It's probably, 37,000 words. So maybe just over 100 pages. So it'll be an easy read, but really excited about that.
All right. But so now when I talk to people, because my book is almost done, my course is done, I've spent over anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000 on courses, on going to live events. And I spent a lot of money on courses from John Lee Dumas, Travis Johnson, Gary Vaynerchuk, this guy named Erik Allen. You might know him. Great, handsome guy. Got an amazing podcast course. So talk to us, because you didn't mention it, but that course actually changed my business and changed my mind to launch my own course. So talk about your podcast course.
Yeah, the podcast course. I mean, I struggled it right with podcasting right at the beginning. Like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. I was uploading to YouTube. I was in a walk-in closet for almost 100 episodes, and I had this 100-foot extension that ran around the bed into our closet because there's no plugins in there, just so I could have a show. And I was literally almost 100 episodes in, and someone said, "Well, how can I listen to it on an Apple?" And I was like, "What the hell is that?" I didn't even know what Apple Podcast was. I became obsessed with trying to figure this thing out. And so I was Googling and I was YouTubing like crazy for weeks on weeks on weeks. How do I host? How do I connect with the big guys, right? How do I make an impact? What's the perfect timeline? How do I set this up? And so what I do is I cut time out for people and I say, let me walk you through exactly what I did to get to where I was at in my podcast days. This is how I set it up. This is how I would recommend you thinking about your podcast. This is how you get guests. This is how you get on other people's shows. What's the greatest way to grow your show? Be a guest on other people's show. How do you do that? How do you connect with other podcasters, right? And so we walk through that. I also walk through exactly how I book the big names, Ed Mylett and Brad Lee and Tim Story. It's a very simple tip. And I'll give it to you right now because it's that simple. But go out and buy the course if you want to learn how to launch a podcast. But here's the thing. If you want to get big names on your show, and Richard has probably done this as well, but you pull out your phone. And if I want Ed Mylett on my show, right, I'm going to do a quick selfie video, no more than 30 seconds. And I'll be like, Ed, what's going on? It's Erik Allen. I know you just released your book, Power of One More. It's super amazing, impactful to me. Let me help you promote that book. Or you just have this course that's coming up. Let me help you promote that course. Let's jump on the podcast and let's have you on. No more than 30 seconds. I book 99% of my guests through Instagram DM with a selfie video, 30 seconds or less. And I send that to them. That's the way that you book big names. Quit sending templates where you just change the name. No one cares about what your podcast is about, how many downloads you have. Are you bringing them value? Like, how can you bring them value, right? Like, how can you help them, right? when you're reaching out, don't be like, oh, this is my show and this is how many downloads I have and this is where I'm ranked. They don't care. How can you help them? If I was to walk up to Ed and on the middle of the day and say, hey, can I pick your brain? Hell no. That's the stupidest thing you could say. But if like, hey, can I help you promote your book? Can I help promote your course? Can I help you promote this or that? Absolutely. Let's do it. That's how you book the big names. Don't send the templates. And so I deep dive into that. And again, I just gave it to you. But if you want to learn how to launch the podcast and get the other secrets of how to do it, go get the course, man. Plus, here's the bonus. When you buy the course, I actually give you 1 month of free sponsorship on my podcast so that I can promote your podcast or your course or your website. So buy the course. I'll give you a month of free sponsorship on my site because I want to help you promote that thing.
And guys, if you're watching this, I did not reach out to Erik and say, hey, give me the course. I invested in the course. So I'm one of the first ones that ever bought the course. So guys, if you want a course that's going to change your life, that actually helped me launch my course, you need to get Erik's course. So how do we find you? How do we get your books, your courses?
Yeah, come on, man. I appreciate it. ErikAllenMedia.com. It's ErikAllen media.com. And I'm probably most active on Instagram. Just Erik G. Allen is my handle on there. And I respond to every comment and every DM that comes my way. And man, I just love connecting with people and continue to make an impact.
Okay, so for the last 2 minutes, because I know we got a hard stop. Well, I want to riff on some of our pals that we talked about.
Let's do it.
So tell me, because I love Kelly Cardenas, and I love when I had him. He's been on my show 3 times now. When he says that I'm going to be his friend for life, and I believe that. So talk to us. Who is Kelly Cardenas?
Kelly is one of the most genuine dudes ever. Like I said, when I met him at Prosperity Camp, I didn't know anybody when I walked into Greg's house. I'd met Greg, through podcasting, right? So I met him for the first time. And then here's this dude with dreadlocks in the back corner. And he was talking with a bunch of people. And I was just instantly drawn to his personality and his excitement of life. And we just connected. And he's just one of those dudes that just loves on you, man, and just lives life to just impact people. And so, man, I'm super honored to have him in my life, man.
And that's, let's talk about I call him Mr. Greg Reed, Mr. Greg S. Reed, because I totally respect him. And I met him through Sharon Lecter, because they wrote that book, was it 3 Feet from Gold? And I love Greg, and you hooked me up with him, and we've been going back and forth, and hopefully I get to go to Secret Knock sometime. So talk to me about who Greg S. Reed is.
Man, Greg's one of those dudes that he is all about making an impact through his events, right? I mean, and just in life, but Prosperity Camp and Secret Knock are his 2 big main events. And I've been blessed to go to Prosperity Camp twice and get to meet him in person. And he's extremely genuine and intentional about connecting with people. So here's the cool thing is when you go to events, typically they got name tags on. Hi, my name is Slim Shady, right? Whatever. Greg doesn't do that. You don't get name tags when you go to Greg's event because he intentionally wants you to meet people and introduce yourself to people. And Greg is one of those dudes that just does an amazing job of impacting people. And he's spot on. He's not going to be on that phone call with you for 35 minutes talking about life. It's quick, get in and get out. But it's genuine. Hey man, how can I help you? Great. Let's do this. Let's make it happen. Boom. And that's what I love about Greg is he's a great dad, by the way. Yeah. I want to say he's a great dad because I've seen him be dad and his son at the events. I've got to meet his son, and just his son is so amazing at what he does and the way that he's raising his kid. And thumbs up to Greg. And
I love Greg because we actually got a chance to talk on Father's Day.
Yeah.
So he called me on Father's Day. So that's just saying right there. So our last brother, which I love, Mr. Joe Graham. Guys, if you don't know Joe Graham, he just did a great speaking event. So go to 150K podcast, check out the event that he was just involved in. So talk about our brother Joe.
Man, Joe is one of the top sales people that maybe not many know about, right? He's been making an impact in sales for a long time. And sometimes when you look at social media or socials, you might not see millions of followers and things like that, but that dude knows his stuff. And if you're not following Joe, you definitely need to. But more than the sales tactical that I've reached out to him and asked on his opinions about, that dude is genuine. I mean, when stuff's going on in my life and I've been in the valley and I've reached out and said, hey man, can you be praying about this? Dude, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the fact that he continues to fight and provide for his family. You know, he's making a big move right now and I'm excited for that. Yeah. And that's not always easy to lift your family up from one state and go to another, to change a career. But he's doing it, man. And I respect him and honor him, man. And he's just one of those dudes that I can reach out to at any time, man.
I love it. So, Erik, this is the last question I have. I'm a big Joel Osteen guy, and I use a quote at the end of the show, but I wanted you to give your input on this. A lot of people are struggling today. There's a lot of people that are struggling, and they want to find peace. And I find that if you don't feel close to God, you're the one that moved, because he's always there. He's the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. So if there's somebody out there struggling with their faith, what can they do in the next 24 hours to find some peace?
Man, I've been there, first of all. For if that's you, I've been there. And I want you to understand that if you want to find the peace, you have to surrender it. Surrender those things that are bothering you. Surrender those things in your life that are negative, that are pulling you away from peace. And when I say surrender, I mean literally have a moment of prayer and say, God, I give you this. God, I give you that. Take it away. Let your will be done in my life. Guide me, lead me. And I give this up to you. And sometimes we have to surrender everything. We have to surrender our wife. We have to surrender our kids. We have to surrender our job. And those things might not be toxic to you, but it's not our job to have those. We have to have the ability to surrender them to God and let his will be done. And that's a scary thing to say to our creator, I think, at times. I've felt that. Because what if something happens, right? But for me, it's so peaceful when I can say, God, take care of my wife, take care of my kids. I'm going to give it to you. And do I want a long life with them? Absolutely. But let your will be done. And so if you're struggling with stuff, man, just have this quick prayer. I think sometimes people overthink prayer. Prayer doesn't have to be 2 hours long, right? It could be a quick prayer like, man, God, just take this off my plate. I'm struggling. You know, I'm struggling to draw close to you because I'm doing this, right? I need help. And that quick little prayer can change your life in an instant. That's what I would say, man.
I love it. And so, guys, the reason why I bring it up, I always end the show with Joel Osteen. I'm a big Joel Osteen guy, and something he talks about is, and I believe that if you listen to my show, you're no longer a victim, you're a victor. So if you're watching my show, you're no longer a victim of your past, but you're a victor of your future and your present. So, guys, thank you so much for always showing up. I love you. Guys, make sure you check out this episode on verticalmomentumpodcast.com. You can find the new book, the course, everything is there. So, my brother Erik, I just want to say thank you so much, and thank your bride for letting me borrow you for an hour or so. And I'm just so grateful that you guys are in my life.
Hey, man, thank you so much. I appreciate you, dude. And for you, brother, know that you're making an impact through your show. I think as entrepreneurs and podcasters, we don't always get the good feedback. We don't always feel like we're making an impact. And I just want you to know that you're actually doing a great job, man. You're doing an awesome job, and you're making an impact. You're a great dad. You're a great husband. I just know that, man. You're doing awesome stuff, man. Keep changing the world, brother.
I love it. So make sure you check out Erik. Make sure you go out and find him on Instagram. His LinkedIn page is fire too. So make sure you check him out on LinkedIn also. Erik, I love you, brother. Have an amazing week.
Love you, bro. We'll talk soon.